Good evening. We're getting a little late start here, but not too bad. So, good to see everybody here this evening. And so at this time, we'll open the meeting up and welcome everyone to the meeting. So, get started. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the April meeting?
Thank you.
Do we have a motion, any comments? Or a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Jan made a motion, Fred second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say, signify by aye.
Aye.
Nay? No. All right. I got a call from Jim Coffenberry on the way up, and he was at a meeting on his way. He's running a little bit late, but that's fine.
You'll be here in about 2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right.
I'm starting the clock.
First thing on the, next thing on the agenda is presentation from Cypress and Creek from about solar, and so we welcome you.
Hi, thank you very much. Let me hand out, I've got 2 handouts for everybody. If you could just grab one each. Good evening. My name is Mary Soliday. I'm an attorney out of Indianapolis. I work with John Gregg, who I know some of you. We represent Cypress Creek Renewables, had the pleasure to do that, and have been involved in a few other solar projects, so we know a little bit about the area. David Benge is the representative today, who is very well versed and can explain a lot more of the technical aspects to you. What I would like to do is sort of set the table for what we're going to talk about tonight, which is we think there are benefits to Clay County to consider a tax abatement for this project. We're talking about an $8.5 million investment in the county, and that investment will be in the county for a minimum of 20 years. And we think that's important to note simply because this is not a situation where the solar panels go in and then 2 years later they go out. We want the county to be assured that there will be a steady investment of this equipment that will be taxed. This is taxed by the state as utility distributable property. And Lou Britton, your fine attorney here, knows it all. I mean, Lou and I work together. He understands how this taxation works. But essentially, we're going to make an investment. Duke Energy is going to buy our power, so we have a buyer for our solar power. And then again, this investment stays in place for a minimum of 20 years, if not 30 years. You can see from what I handed out, as you know, to obtain tax abatement by law, we have to submit what's called an SB1, which David has signed, which shows the investment in the county. We also have run some projections of the benefit to the county in terms of taxes over the long haul. And as you can see, over a 10-year period, this project, even with a 10-year traditional abatement, traditional meaning 100% first year, 90, 80, 70, etc., would be $148,000. But interestingly, over a 20-year period, which is the minimum life of the project, would contribute almost $473,000 to the tax coffers of Clay County simply by being there. And by the way, solar projects don't really need hardly any government services. And David can attest to the safety record of the industry. But we think this is a win-win for the county in the sense that we believe, an unobtrusive use. David's met with many, I'm sure, adjoining property owners. By the way, this is about 33 acres over Dick Johnson Township, of course, to the west of here. So I just wanted to kind of set the table in terms of, again, the economic benefits. Now, Lou can attest to the fact that the way this works, and I know that you know this as well, is that the county council is the body that has the authority to grant tax abatement. As I understand it, they look heavily to your recommendation. And so what we would like to do is have the council preliminarily consider a tax abatement sometime, maybe it's June meeting if they can get to it, or July at the latest, and then think about ultimately a final hearing on abatement where notice is sent to the taxing units and notice is put in the paper, and do that a month later. So we would like to start construction this year. That's a sense of urgency, but again, I think that's a good thing. One of the things that we talk about, and I have yet another thing to share with you, is benefits to the community in terms of construction jobs. We think these jobs pay about $30 an hour. This construction takes about 12 weeks. And so there will be meaningful employment for that period of construction. So we think that's also something to consider. I wanted to also mention to you that you're probably well aware of what's going on in other counties in Indiana about solar. Let's say it was February, if not March, over in Sullivan County, they did approve an abatement for a similarly sized solar project, approved a 100-year abatement. Over in Henry County, which is on the other side of I-70, of course, other side of Indianapolis, over in Henry County, it very recently approved a tax abatement for a much smaller investment, about a 2.5 megawatt project. We're proposing, is it 5 megawatts?
Yes,
Yeah.
5 megawatts.
So, and then lastly, Vigo County is also now considering our request. We would like to have 2 projects in this area, and as David will talk about, I think particularly because you're Redevelopment Commission, we think this is the start of something good in the sense of Clay County getting involved in renewables. We think it's a start, you get a project going, and hopefully other projects would consider locating in the area, offshoot industries and related sorts of things. And so we think synergy has to start somewhere, and this is a start. And we think it certainly would speak to Clay County's openness to renewables and being progressive in its thinking. So it's something that, in that vein, we'd like you to think about, which is why I think Henry County has supported the abatement. And I think this is why Vigo County, they preliminarily, just this week, approved a resolution. We're going to be working closely with their representatives for more detail. And there's a public hearing on June 9th on the final abatement. So that's sort of what's going on in Indiana, the solar industry. There is a project, of course, at the Indianapolis Airport you may have seen. That's on airport land, which doesn't pay taxes, and so there wasn't a need there for abatement. So, with all that said, let me turn it over to David so you can talk more about the site and your company, and then we'll go from there with questions.
Sounds great. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I've met some of you in some initial conversations about the project, but I'm happy to have an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Cypress Creek and about our project. So I'll start off with some background on who we are. Cypress Creek is a developer and long-term owner-operator of solar energy facilities. It's our goal to build and own as many of these facilities as we possibly can, because we do see solar energy as a cleaner, more affordable way to provide power in the future. Our business model really focuses on what we call utility scale installations, like the one we're talking about tonight. Typically projects in the 2 to 20 megawatt range. And we see that as the best opportunity to leverage the benefits of solar and have the most long-term impact. Our team is very, very experienced. Our combined team has a combined track record of over 100 successful transactions that are currently operational in different markets across the country. Last year we installed 45 megawatts, which is about 7 of the types of projects that we're talking about here tonight. Those systems are currently operational in North Carolina. And this year our goal is to install about 300 megawatts, including these projects in Indiana. Over the long term, over the next 2 to 3 years, we're active in about 9 different states across the country, and we're hoping to build out a portfolio of close to 2,000 megawatts. One of the things that differentiates us a little bit is that our goal is really to try and pursue market opportunities where we can build a facility and compete with other power sources. and provide the most cost-effective energy solution for that utility partner and by extension for their local customers in the long run. So I know some of you have some background material that we provided in the past, and I can share this electronically later on, but I wanted to give you a couple images to look at just to get an idea of what this facility will look like when it's completed. This is one of the facilities that we brought online last year in North Carolina. And then this is another one. So this type of installation is a very low impact use on the property. There's no emissions from the facility. There's no noise pollution from the facility. It has very little impact on the property. There's no long-term remediation that's required. At the end of the useful life of the system, the facility can be disassembled and removed, and that property can go directly back into agricultural productivity. So long-term, it's a great way to bank the property for future uses that are not going to impact that particular installation or any of the nearby residents. This project in particular we've been working on for about a year now. We have entered into a long-term agreement, as Mary had mentioned, with Duke Energy for the sale of all the energy that's produced by the facility over a term of 20 years. We're currently awaiting the final approval from the Public Service Commission on that contract. We've also been engaged with Duke in interconnection studies, so we understand what's going to be required to tie the facility into the grid. We expect that to be completed here in the next couple of weeks. And we're really moving towards a projected start date on the project sometime this fall, and ideally have it operational by the end of 2015. Once it is operational, there will be some long-term operations and maintenance that has to occur. The primary tasks that will be involved will be landscaping the facility, providing security for private security for the facility, and monitoring the output of the system so we make sure it's operating at peak performance. We're budgeting about $75,000 a year for that long-term operations and maintenance. We expect that to escalate at about 2% annually.
And David, that's done by local people?
Yes, that's correct. And again, to Mary's point earlier, there are very little services required. I mean, we're managing our security. We don't require any additional water or anything like that. Sewer line. So in terms of county services, it's very low impact. And this is a preliminary site plan that we put together for the facility. The facility is going to be located just west of town, near a little bit north of the high school and the middle school. And we chose that site because it is adjacent to an existing Duke substation. In terms of the environmental benefits that the facility will bring, it'll obviously not being having any emissions provides some significant offsets in terms of carbon reduction, and that's one of the reasons that Duke is excited about the project, given the changing environment in terms of those regulations. But also just to kind of give you some points of references, it would have the equivalent of taking about 820 cars off the road. It would be equivalent to planting about 5,000 trees. And it will produce enough power to power, on average, about 1,100 homes. So that's kind of the general background about the project. Mary did a great job of kind of going over the specific economics related to this request for the property tax abatement. One other point I just would like to acknowledge as far as that goes is that this is an opportunity to generate substantially more property tax revenue from the project site than the current status quo, even with the abatement. Right now, just looking at property tax records, that property is generating about $1,000 a year in property tax revenues, according to the data that we looked at. And even with the abatement, this facility would generate nearly $15,000 a year for the first 10 years on average. So again, a great opportunity to increase revenues for local services and projects. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the project.
Did you say it was going to be a 20 megawatt or a 5 megawatt?
This particular facility will be a 5 megawatt
5
facility.
megawatt?
Correct. Yes.
What type of panels do you use?
We use photovoltaic panels.
Solar World
Oh, in terms of brand? The specific vendor has not been selected at this time that will be manufacturing the panels. We have a number of different vendors that we work with, just in terms of trying to get the best price that works for the project and making sure that we have availability in terms of the panel supply.
and how much did Duke Energy pay you for your power?
Well, I apologize, I'm not sure how much of that information is public at this point. I'd be happy to answer that question.
Well, it shouldn't be public here if it's public in Vigo County. 20 years or $604,000 is what they pay them.
I'm not sure.
Is that per year or is that only 20 years?
I'm not familiar with that number. I mean, again, I just, I
So
don't
what was
want.
the number again? Say it again, can you say that again, please? I just want to make sure maybe I can answer your question.
$604,000. Is that over 20 years or is that per year?
In taxes?
You want to read it?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the question.
Okay. Duke Energy, over 20 years, would pay $604,000 to purchase the solar power.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's 20 years.
yeah. Okay, as David said, that contract has to go to the State Utility Regulatory Commission, and I don't think the commission has finally approved that number.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, so we have executed a contract that's based on a certain price per kilowatt hour that's generated by the facility. So we have some estimates that we've done in our economic models with our investors to determine what the annual revenue we expect from the facility. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I don't know where the $604,000 was estimated from. It's in the paper there. I assume that they were making their own calculation on what they expected the facility to generate. I'm not sure.
If that's the case, I mean, you mentioned $75,000 a year expenses. That won't even pay for one person out there. That's only $30,000 a year. Where are you getting the revenue from? If it's not from Duke Energy.
Oh, I see.
Where are
Yes.
you getting the revenue from?
Yeah, so clearly I'm a little bit uncertain where the $604,000 came from, but I would venture to guess that clearly does not make sense as a 20-year number for the revenue of the system. I apologize, I'm just a little bit on the spot in terms of I don't want to step on any toes with Duke and reveal terms of the agreement that they may or may not have made public at this point. Again, if you'd like to talk about it in a different format, I'd be happy to get into more detail on
Does the federal government give you a subsidy?
This project will qualify for an investment tax credit.
30% of the cost of
That's correct.
everything.
Yes, that's correct.
Does that include the lease on the land?
No, that does not include the land cost.
Does the solar company pay the taxes on the property, or do you pay, the owner? Pay the taxes on the property out there?
We would pay the taxes on the property, as the owner of the solar facility. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and that's the question, I said the $604,000, you know, and I don't know why they.
Yeah, and I'm not trying, I apologize, I'm not trying to be evasive, I just don't understand how they got that number.
Well-
And I need an opportunity to
Yeah.
evaluate it.
I think what we could say about that, sir, is that if we were to come before the county council, assuming that that was a publicly approved figure, we'll provide the figures. I think what we're saying is we don't know yet if it's actually a finally approved number by the state. So we don't really want a number in the paper we're not comfortable with being the right number. But we will, when we know, we'll provide it to you.
And something I'd kind of like to talk to you about a little bit. My time here on the board, I know when we think of tax abatements, we think of using a tax abatement to attract people to come in.
Sure.
One of the things we always look for in this particular form we fill out is a number of new employment that might come about. And in your case, I see you have one. You don't even have a salary down for it. So
Understood.
that's kind of a, I'm just trying to get a feel for justification or no justification for a tax abatement.
Sure. And the way that I'd like to respond to that is to acknowledge the fact that one individual solar installation, because of the nature of this technology, because it is so self-sufficient, does not generate a lot of long-term jobs on its own. What generates a lot of long-term jobs in this field is creating a hospitable environment to build an industry. And so what we're saying here by choosing Clay County and contracting with Duke is that we see a market opportunity. The economics here in this area makes sense to build a solar project and be successful. And so we have every intention at this point of looking to do more of these facilities. And that's really how you build up the long-term employment base in this industry. So we would love to do additional facilities. We're already looking into trying to secure additional sites and having some preliminary discussions with Duke on that matter. And so, you know, if this first project goes smoothly and we form an excellent partnership with the local community, then absolutely we're going to look to try and come back here and do more. And we'll have folks that worked on that first project that will have the experience, and we can go right to them again, and then they can leverage those experiences into working for other companies that will be developing similar projects in the area.
Well, I just want to pick up on the fact that I think now you're looking at a piece of property on the McDonald farm, which is where I was raised. So you're kind of halfway between Negotiation and Circuitville there. And one thing that I really noticed and picked up on, it said something about, from the Taxpayers Association, whether this is true or not, are you utilizing the Sheriff's Department?
I mean, we're providing our own security. I don't know how that would work in terms of, you know, we fall in a certain jurisdiction. So if there were, you know, let's say there were some sort of 911 call, we have, you know, a 911, we have to register an address. So I would assume that, you know, someone would come out and respond. But in terms of the overall, you know, security for the facility, the maintenance for the facility, we're providing that on our own.
I was trying to figure out whether or not that comment in the paper about utilizing the Sheriff's Department is that to utilize the Sheriff's Department for that one particular employee you're talking about?
No, there's no connection there.
Okay.
Did that
search for ground to use, what do you look for? Do you look for like underdeveloped ground, that if it's if that type is used, then it won't take away from prime, crops
Sure.
that can be planted?
Well, so first and foremost, we look for the existing electrical infrastructure. Because that's one of the key drivers of whether or not a project makes sense, is how much is it going to cost to tie into the existing grid. So in that sense, substations are kind of one of the things that they will start out looking for. That's, again, why we've cited this project right next to the substation. That's why we've cited the project in Vigo County right next to the substation. It's just easier to tie in. Beyond that, and an ideal site is one that's flat, ideally clear. If there's an opportunity for us to use less productive property, then that's certainly a win-win. We're still, in terms of the economics to the property owner, we have to make a compelling case there as well. Does that answer your question?
I have a question. You said the first 12 weeks during construction you would have jobs and they pay around $3 an hour. Do you know how many jobs and the approximate pay that will be paid during that time?
Sure. Yeah, so it would be somewhere between 60 and 80 jobs, and that will fluctuate during the construction period. And we estimate that we estimate about $30 an hour.
Did you say how many? 6 to 8 or
60 to 80.
60. So can you give me a rough estimate of what that would be in payroll costs? 8 hours a day? I mean, can you give me an idea?
I'm going to sit here and calculate that.
Then I have another question. Where are you going to get these people from Clay County? What are going to be the specifications to work on this job?
Well, so our general contractor that we work with on the project will work with local contractors to evaluate their capabilities and select the right partner for the project. It's in terms of kind of the scope of work that's involved. So it kind of breaks down between structural and electrical work. In terms of an overall complexity of a construction project, solar facilities are not overly complex. It's not the same as building a new hospital or anything like that. The structural component really revolves around the mounting equipment that holds the solar panels, and that's designed to be pretty straightforward. And then the electrical side of the business is just connecting the solar panels and connecting it to the grid. Typically we're going to look for somebody that has some experience with that type of voltage and that type of equipment.
I guess in my mind, I'm thinking where you're going to get 60, 80 people at Clay County to work for 12 weeks with the kind of skills that you're going to have. To me, I just have a feeling it's going to be farmed outside of the county to other, on a different contract type of deal, not use Clay County labor. That's what I'm thinking.
Sure. Well, I mean, again, I can speak to our past experiences, and we have typically found that it's most cost effective to use labor that is as local as possible, as long as we can find the appropriate labor.
And then I have another question. Is this area going to be fenced in for
Yes.
protection?
That's a requirement.
How do the neighbors feel about this going in out there?
So I met with, I had a neighborhood meeting, I believe on March 20th, somewhere around there, and met with most of the adjacent landowners, as well as some other interested parties, and answered all their questions about the facility, and everyone that I spoke to at the end of the meeting seemed satisfied. I haven't heard any complaints since then, so I think we've addressed their concerns.
back to the question on payroll, I mean, I think you're talking at least $1 million, and if you just say $30 an hour times 40 hours a week times 70 people times 12 weeks, that's $1 million payroll. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds in range.
Yeah,
certainly.
okay.
Can I,
Same number I had.
when you say 60 to 80 jobs, I mean, you have somebody out there moving dirt one day, so there's one job. You're not
Well,
gonna have,
maybe-
I assume you're not gonna have 60 to 80 people on this site for 12 solid weeks.
No, you're right, it will ebb and flow depending on the,
So when you say 60 to 80
stage
jobs,
of the
you mean a
facility.
total of 60 to 80 people working there during the
no,
12-week period?
no, at its peak of installation, when they're putting on the panels and working through the final phases, or the middle stages, at that point, there will be 60 to 80 people out there all working at once.
Okay, so how long would that period
I mean, that would probably be, I'm not on the construction side of the business, so I'm really taking a guess at this, but I would say that it's probably going to be at least a third of the construction period, if not more.
be? Okay, so we can't do the simple math.
So that's not full-time equivalents for 12 weeks. The 60 to 80.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you have another estimate? Payroll estimate?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really have to talk to our construction folks to get a little bit better sense of how that all works out.
I know you answered part of this a minute ago with Fred's question, but now you said that you're leasing the ground from them.
Correct.
Okay, so
That's correct.
they'll pay the taxes on the ground and you're going to be paying like personal property taxes on
Well, no, I believe, so we would be paying the taxes on the facility. And I believe we are also responsible for the taxes on the ground that we're leasing.
You know, will you be filing like personal property?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are.
With
Yes,
the,
yes,
with the
yes,
assessor's office?
yes.
Well, yeah, the way it works is the state assesses the panels that they call utility distributable and sends the bill to the assessor then collects it from them. But the local collects the utility distributable bill. That bill is sent it's calculated by the state, but it's sent by the local assessor.
Okay.
But then the assessor also can assess the increase in the land value.
And then the assessor then will send the values over to the auditor's office?
Yeah.
So that we can calculate the
Yeah.
taxes?
Correct.
So the assessor's office and our office will both be involved in this?
Correct, that is correct. That's been my experience of this.
Does that assessed value change annually?
That's a good question. I think once the depreciation's taken, it's pretty level. It's pretty much the same number every year. The land is a function, of course, of what's the local property tax rate on land. Because, you know, there's a designation, there's agricultural land and there's land that's developed. What we've seen in the wind industry around the state is that the land value goes up because it's not agricultural anymore. Not taxing the wind turbines. I know this isn't wind, but it's analogous. The value of the land goes up because it's hosting a development, so the assessors have been assessing the land at a higher number. So I think, David, what's going to happen here is the land, and our assumption doesn't even include that. The county's essentially going to get more out of the land, out of that 33 acres in terms of taxes, plus the taxes on the solar panels that the state calculates and sends the local to build and collect it. Yeah.
So the county don't have any jurisdiction over setting the tax rate for the panels, for the personal property?
Correct. That's the state. But
We don't have any jurisdiction over that, that's handled by the state.
because it's what's called utility distributable. If Duke Energy had a substation here, the state calculates it. Anything to do with utilities in the state, their property, is the state sends the bill. The money stays local, it doesn't go to the state, but the assessment's done at the state. The county still does the assessment on the land.
Dave, you said that evidently you came in agreement with, lease agreement with the property owners in say a year or so, within the last year.
Yes.
And this agreement is for up to 20 years or longer.
Yes.
The lease.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jan asked a question, one of the questions I was going to ask about selecting property sites for this type of work. And my understanding, 5 megawatts, right?
Correct.
On what, 33 acres or
Yes.
approximately?
Approximately.
And did I hear someone say the property tax on that 33 acres is $1,000 per year?
Yeah, I just took the number that's for the whole parcel that was in the property tax records.
I'm going to talk to the assessor about my property tax. They're getting pretty good rate.
That still you got on it was still.
In other counties that you have worked with, if granted a tax abatement, do you guys ever deal with any type of clawback agreement? Like where you have, say, okay, we're going to produce this many megawatts, and over 10 years, it's not that much.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. And I meant to mention that and I forgot. We are more than happy to sign a clawback agreement. If we remove panels in year 4, so the taxes are less than projected, we'll pay back the taxes that we were abated. Lou and I have worked on a similar agreement. I mean, we're happy to sign such an agreement. That's not an issue for us, because we're very confident, once that investment goes in, it stays for 20 years. And, I mean, I think that's one of the benefits to the county. Unlike, by hypothetical, a small manufacturer that says, well, I'm gonna have 5 jobs. Well, he might have 5 jobs for 5 years, and then later on, it might only be 1 job. I mean, and then that equipment goes out the door, goes somewhere else. In this case, that equipment's gonna stay here in Clay County for at least 20 years. So yes, we would sign a clawback agreement.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Happy to stay here as long as you need.
Stay there a second. But anyway. One thing that Bill brought up about, usually when we offer an abatement, it is, equipment's there too, but it's basically based on full-time employment, based on so much money per year. That's a big decision maker that influx our decision for any type of recommendation to the county council.
Sure.
I want you to understand, our function here is to recommend or forward anything to the council without any recommendation, and we have those options here.
Okay.
So,
Well, again, just to kind of expand on what I was saying earlier, I mean, even beyond our company, Cypress Creek, I mean, we mentioned a couple examples here, the Indianapolis Airport, Hoosier Energy just announced that they're going to do 10 systems throughout their service territory. This is one of 4 installations that Duke Energy contracted with. So, there's a lot of growing interest in these types of facilities, and there is a real opportunity for the folks with the skills in Clay County to get some firsthand experience and position themselves and to be able to take advantage of that change in the energy economy and be able to do these systems here in Clay County, but also other opportunities throughout the state as it becomes more popular.
It's my understanding that any type or piece of equipment will devalue itself, depreciate itself over a period of time, and then it kind of flat lines. And talking with folks that I feel like understood the solar panel industry, about after 3, maybe 4 years, solar panels reduced 30% of what their maximum was. I
Yeah,
don't know if
that's true. And
about
that
it.
is true, and that's why the calculations I gave you assume that depreciation. Meaning the numbers on here of what the county would receive in taxes assumes that depreciation that you just said.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
That's
You
a
know,
footnote.
I had the pleasure of being with you on March 30th,
Mhm.
and we sat and talked, we both, and we had members of council there. Tell you, Mr. President, I don't want you to think we just put this to sleep and didn't think about it until tonight. But I think a lot of us have talked about it, wondered about it, waiting to see what kinds of things you present to us tonight.
Sure.
And I don't know if this will be out of order or not, we could always make a motion and then we could, just have a discussion. But at this point, I would suggest that we have a motion to forward this abatement request to the council without recommendation, and they consider the fallback agreement. I don't know if considering is the right terminology or not there.
Yep.
So you're kind of recommending forwarding this to the county council without recommendation for
Exactly.
abatement, other than if they go forward, then we would have a callback.
Agreement is installed and still.
I'm sorry, so is that motion with no recommendation or no recommendation or not a recommendation? That's why I make sure I understand the difference. You're basically saying you're neutral on the situation, or you're saying you don't recommend it?
I didn't say we don't recommend.
Okay, you're just
I said
neutral.
without.
Without, thank you, I just didn't hear.
know or not.
Okay, thank you.
Is that your motion?
Pardon me?
Or is that gonna be your motion, or are you
Yes.
still just discussing?
That is my motion. Not on the table.
We got a motion on the floor to recommend this to the county council without a recommendation, right?
I say to forward it to the county
forward to the
council
county
without
council
recommendation.
Without recommendation.
With the callback agreement, should they choose to go ahead.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion among members? What do you think? No discussion?
The only discussion I have is I have mixed emotions because of the job thing, that's what abatement's all about. So I think real solution is the best thing for me, and then it's on the council to do what they think is best for the county.
Because basically they do that anyhow. If we even send to the council with recommendation, with no recommendation, when we send it to the council always makes the final decision.
Right. Yeah, I already stated what our purpose here is.
Yeah.
I got one other question, I don't know if you can literally say it or not. Does the federal government give a subsidy, not the tax, which you said, I'm talking about a subsidy per megawatt of solar energy?
In terms of, do they pay per how much is produced, how much power is produced? Is that what you're asking?
Per megawatt hour.
So
Do they pay a subsidy per megawatt hour?
they do not pay any subsidy based on the performance of the system, based on how much energy it produces.
When did they stop that?
That is, and Mary, you might help me on this, but I think you might be thinking of the wind
Right.
incentive.
No, sir.
No, there was a production tax credit that went out, it ended at the end of last year. There was a credit, the wind industry took advantage of it, they got so many pennies per every kilowatt, whatever generation produced, they got a rebate from, literally it was a credit against their taxes from the government. That is not in effect now, as I understand it. Some projects may be grandfathered, but it's off the books now, and it doesn't like it applies to you.
No, the solar, the federal solar incentive has always been the federal investment tax credit. Just a tax credit based on the value of the facility that's installed.
Not production.
Yeah, it's independent of the production that system generates.
But that's directly deducted from your tax liability.
Correct. It would be a credit against the liability of, yes, the federal taxes.
Right.
And if you can't charge it all off in 1 year, you can carry it forward.
Well, I don't know about that, but I will say something. I've said this to the Vigo County people the other day, which is all forms of energy in this country are subsidized. Whether people like it or not, it's very hard to understand. The oil, gas, coal, they're all subsidized in one way or another. I'm sure you know that.
I'd like to know.
Sure.
You say it's been discontinued.
No, that's a production tax credit, not the investment. Isn't that what you have, investment tax
It's
credit?
been discontinued?
The production tax credit,
When
not
did they quit it?
at the end of 14, the end of last year.
And that was for wind projects.
Right.
Mr. President,
Okay.
we got a motion on the
Yeah,
floor.
we do. And a second. Any other questions?
Can I ask a question out here? My question, I didn't quite understand the clawback portion of the motion.
Oh, you don't understand the clawback?
No, I know what that is, but how does that relate to your motion? What was your motion, if you wouldn't mind restating it?
That we would forward it to the council without recommendation with the clawback, meaning we would ask that if the council goes ahead with a recommendation, that they would make sure they institute the clawback agreement.
Thank you, thank you.
Because the clawback agreement is one thing I think this council wants to have in place.
Right. Motion on the floor and second. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay? Dave, thanks. I do have, I wanted to get this in, but it's fine asking it now. The panels, they're going to produce, this here 33 acres going to produce 5 megawatts. Do they get to a point in their lifespan that they don't put out as much energy as they did? And if so, do you replace them?
Yeah.
So the panels are guaranteed by the manufacturer to produce at least 80% of their day one performance over a course of 25 years. So they do slightly degrade over time, but there's a guarantee behind it. So typically you wouldn't replace them.
Okay. But if there's a faulty one, it will be replaced.
Yes.
I remember that's what you told us last week.
Correct.
Then what do you do with the panel that is around?
They have to get one.
Recycle.
I mean, what do you do with them?
When they're done, what do you do with them? They're fully recyclable.
Metals, did you?
Yeah, because it's essentially just glass with an aluminum frame.
No,
and
automatic.
silicone, which is just refined sand.
Did everybody vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, man.
I'm
You're
sorry.
welcome to stay, or you don't have to stay.
Bungie, B-U-N-G-E.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure I got it straight,
That's
that's all.
all. You get the motion then.
Yes, sir, I
Remember,
did.
there was 1 E or 2.
I'd invite you to stay, but it's apparent that we don't have any donuts or cookies.
He's ignoring you.
And I ate all your
We'll
candy.
share the drink, wasn't it?
Okay, so I should send them a draft resolution. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Anybody notice the backpack had a solar panel on it?
Yes, I saw that at the lunch.
I thought it was interesting.
Well, you kept it facing the light.
What he said is correct. Jim and I was at the Accelerate meeting today,
Okay.
and Chuck Martindale, who's your energy, mentioned that he has now another part-time job, and that is traveling the state, trying to find site locations for solar panels. And he was down at Rockport last night, and he talked about the one in Henry County, And as this gentleman said, they want 10. I think he said at the present time they only had 2. So they're working very hard to increase the number of locations that they have.
I didn't want to get into an argumentative mood, but if you recall, when the young lady made her first presentation, she mentioned the comment that they would like to have at least 2 in the area. And I'll only make that assumption that they're talking about Vigo and Clay, 1 acre.
No, actually, they were talking about the county. In
What
fact,
county?
actually, there are, I just wasn't even gonna get into it tonight, but
Good.
I have the environmentals for architects, the Glengarry site, and the Chinook site.
Then why did they pick 33 acres of prime
Because
farmland?
they tried to tell me that none of those other 3 sites had any substation available.
It was close to the substation, they put.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah,
right there by the substation.
But at Chinook, they had to have a substation because they had the drag line.
But are the substations of those 3 that you just mentioned? That they're
Pardon?
looking at, are there substations close by?
There's 2 of them definitely, and Glengarry, it may not be there anymore.
Wonder why they didn't bring that up, that's a good argument.
I talked to him about, I had the stuff over there, I just didn't see a point in it.
No.
I'm glad we got as far as we did.
I liked your, yeah, that was good. 'Cause
I think it
I just
covered.
I didn't know what,
I think it covered it well as
Yeah.
far as the motion.
We can all sit here and guess, but I would guess that they still have some
Will they
challenges
contact
in
me
Vigo
to put
County.
on the council's agenda?
I told them to call Eric somehow.
I think it was in 5 years.
Good luck with
The
that.
only thing I can say is, what that newspaper says about Balboa County,
Right.
they cannot survive on $30,000 a year.
No.
Now,
That's true.
huh?
That's true.
Well, it's an $8 million
They can't
investment. I
even
mean,
figure, they won't have to spend.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna make money somewhere, because they would invest the money if they weren't.
I don't know, we had a guy come to Sullivan County once and said, you give me $1 million grant, I'd make money.
Well, we could talk about this all evening.
We'll see what
The
happens.
next thing on the agenda.
I
Yeah,
did.
next item on the
I
agenda.
did inform Mary of your 5% abatement.
Okay.
So there, you will get, if the county gives it to them, there will be a little something.
They were still ready to
Well,
pay
then
the
you-
$2,500 fee for the abatement.
Mr. President, sometime along the line, maybe you could reconfirm.
So you want me-
Of his 5% that he's talking about. I don't know what you're talking.
Don't worry, we'll talk about
That's the
that.
fee.
We're gonna talk about that. So do you want me to talk about the next item?
Yes, please. Let's
Okay,
move
well-
right along.
Apparently, my life was in danger and I didn't even realize it.
What did you say?
When he saw this about the road repair out the industrial park on the agenda, he assumed that I was pointing out the commissioners were gonna have to repair that road.
Who did?
So, he's calm now that he knows that we're looking at our tax increment as a way to do it. Anyway, what happened is during our site visits, I went out to IBC, to our last one, and I drove in through Technofab and around and over to IBC. And when you come in, there's a place that's all eaten out in the road, right? It's right before you get to what was the Envirotech building.
Right there by Technifab.
Yeah, it's, well, I guess all that's Technofab now, but just as a reference point, where that building is, it was kind of property line where that was at. And it was on the east side of the road. But the biggest one was when you go to make the turn onto the eastern bound section of the road, it's right where the trucks turn, and when they, I don't know if you've ever watched them drive those trucks around there, but especially the Great Dane guys, I don't even think they hit the brake. And they don't let off the accelerator, they just like that. And what happens is all that weight shifts, and it takes it out, and it's just wallowed out. It's maybe a half lane there that you can drive without losing your vehicle in it. And there's another one, I think down toward Colonel King. I was gonna do that before I came in tonight, but I didn't get in till later. But there's another one, I think, a little, these aren't big. I mean, they're maybe a section that's maybe 15 to 20 feet. But the rest of the road is okay. It's just these several sections. And I talked with our chief transportation planner and our director about it. Our director used to be our chief transportation planner. And they suggested that, especially on that corner, one of the things that we look at is if we're going to repair that we do it with concrete. So that's what I wanted to find out is if you wanted me to get with the commissioners and arrange to get an estimate from whoever we're going to get an estimate from. I think after talking with Paul, he gave me the companies that they'd be interested in having us talk with. But what I need to know is if you want me to go ahead and see what we need to do to get an estimate and then get the estimates.
I'm all in favor of you getting estimates. I'm not necessarily in favor of you going ahead and making some decision until, because sometimes it's unfair to bring these things up, wanting us to make a decision when I know I don't even know what you're talking about.
No. You won't have to do that because what we'll do is, for one thing, I'll have somebody take a look at it and I will get pictures of it too and measure it. But we'll have a, contractor or whoever, probably just, he was talking about using the paving guys that are up here doing the city, using Wabash Valley, and what was the other one?
Milestone.
Milestone? Okay, those were three that he talked about. We could just have them, come out there and they can meet out there and give us an estimate on the pieces that way. But we can't just go ahead and do the project. It's got to be done as a public works project, which means you would be bidding everything out, putting the specs together, bidding the thing out. And the one thing, did you ever find out about when the common wage goes off?
July 1.
July 1, I think.
Okay, if it's after July 1, which it most likely will be, we don't have to have that common wage where, we appointed a 3-member board that decided what the wage is for the job. So that should hopefully save us a little bit on it too. But if you look at your TIF report, it would come out of that reserve that we've got there. I have no idea what we're talking about money-wise. The thing that you need to know about the road is when we built that road, the first section was the section past Technofab, and then the turn, and then to Great Dane, Thermo King, and then to the edge of the tree line. And then everything after that, that was in like 90, I think it was 97 or 98 that we did that. And then from the tree line out to IBC, that's all stuff that was done in 2001, 2002. And all of the part that we're looking at now that's damaged, we built that to a highway grade where the engineer said that it should last at least 10 years without any maintenance. Well, it's been over 13, 14 years. So, I mean, or more than that, 15, 16. So it's done its job, but we do have to take care of business because IBC does not run trucks up and down 300 anymore. That's all of their people that go out that way. And just so you know, the people go that way because apparently they pick up a bunch of nails and stuff when they go the other way. So they were kind enough to tell me at IBC after I driven in that way. So,
For us as members to kind of understand what Brent brought up, and I'm not really opposed to getting any estimates because that's all they'd be anyway, is between now and our next meeting, each one of us at our leisure time have an opportunity to drive out there and look at it. You can't miss it. Once you pull in there on that west drive, heading back there, Technofab, you see a spot, and then the 90-degree turn is the worst. And before you two guys came on, it's probably been 2 or 3 summers ago, Paul, when we
3 or 4
years ago, anything that on took the TIF money off the IBC TIF, and was able to chip and seal 300 from 40 down to 15th Street and use that TIF monies from that. That's what this would occur. where we would be able to help the county. And we can do that because it's attached to the TIF. But I think we need to, before we make a decision, we all need to look at your time, legal time.
Once that pavement starts breaking up from the edge, then it just starts creeping both directions, because it just, you know, the edge just keeps breaking off and breaking off.
And that thing of it is out there, it's on both sides, it's on the inside and outside corner. I went out there to see it, and yeah, it's bad. It needs some TLC. So, what do you think? Let them maybe work and get some estimates. Paul, you think the county could get some estimates possibly on that? Maybe like per section, like where it's bad at when you pull in and then the 90-degree turn. Let me ask you this, and then on properties that a county road feeds into an easement onto property, is the county responsible for that, or is the property owner? Like a Thermal King or a Great Dane or a Technofast?
For a reburger?
Or a reburger, which he's not anymore, because
Right.
you don't know that.
Right.
But do you know?
I'm not sure what you mean.
All right, an easement, let's say you got a county road and you're pulling in on in this case, business. The easement that goes into there, who's responsible for that easement? Is the property owner or is the county?
I thought it was 20 foot
From center of the plywood,
from the center out.
Basically, we consider County Road 33 feet. So we're talking half that distance. Now, but you're talking about an easement,
well,
which is a sort of a different situation.
well, maybe I'm saying the wrong word, okay? But I'm saying where you pull into a,
Are you thinking right away?
But the county's not responsible for private driveways.
no, I understand that.
But, you know, if there's a private drive connection, the county or city will typically make a turn-off apron, you know, a couple feet.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's how, you know, and how much. So when they look at that, well, we gotta know the rules of engagement, you may say, or that's what I say.
So Jim's gonna give the quotes, or you're giving the quotes?
Tom has asked the highway department to give the quotes. And so basically, Tom, if I heard you correctly, I think you want a quote for the bad sections only, plus a quote for the entire section. Is that what you're saying?
Not the,
I don't think we need, because the rest of that isn't in bad shape.
I
mean,
don't,
in my opinion, it wasn't.
I don't know that the rest, any of the rest of it needs anything done to it.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you said, that's the reason why I'm asking.
Because the thickets, that is, if we do very much, we're gonna be in.
If we do what, Jim?
If we do very much beyond, you know, what we just need to do, then you're gonna get into real money.
Now, how far east are we going?
If it's the way I recognize, or remember, I think there's one there by Thermal King and Great Dane. And it's just one place, it's not a big area. It's like, kind of like that one that's in the front. So,
We're actually looking at 3, maybe 4 areas, right?
I don't
I think
think it's
it's
any
3.
more than 3.
I don't think it is either. Now, I only drove through there once and in one direction. I never got out and looked because I just looked from the vehicle,
And you'd like to have these ready for the next meeting, right?
if possible.
I don't see why not.
And
That's what I put in the minutes.
that's just a recommendation. Is that okay? Ours.
Because that's all they're asking for here, is go ahead with some estimates.
Yeah.
And Jim and I are guilty of this, so I'll take the hit. I'm the one that say, yeah, we need to visit that at our meeting, so that's why it's on the agenda tonight.
I didn't even know my life was in danger, so.
He didn't think it was.
It's really.
The next thing on the agenda is considering the use of dollars collected on the 5% development fee on tax abatements for covering marketing expenses, and what that means is this. I know we are Clay County is part of the regional group that Accelerate West Central, and we have an annual dues fee, and there are consultant trips that transpire throughout the year. They've already had one, and this next week there's a trip to Chicago. I'm not sure if Paul's going to be able to go or not. You're not, and I'm not either. But anyway, and I know we've discussed this before, but I think we need to get it out on the table and maybe bring us to a vote that if a representative from Clay County goes on consulting trips with the Accelerate group, any expenses, and I don't need to set an amount where you, and this like next week, using it for an example, it's a 2-day trip, you're going to be overnight just one night, but that we should be able to cover those expenses for that individual going on the trip, which would be a hotel bill, maybe a per diem for meals, and possible mileage. I think that we need to, I don't know the verbiage that we need to use, but that pretty much curtails everything, covers expenses.
Well, just to add to that, a little extra, that may become a lot more needed, because the meeting that I was at, the reason I was late getting here, there's a real possibility that you're going to have some good stuff to market.
Someone?
Good stuff to market, okay? Define properties, possibly even maybe a building, that kind of thing. So there'll be, at least the folks I talked to, their expectations are they would be marketing and so would we. So at that point, it would change what it is now, where we really don't have anything say, come here. We would have something tangible that we could actually do that.
I have 2 questions along that line. One is, does Accelerate do anything at all to help pay for some of these expenses that Accelerate puts together and you all? Does Accelerate help at all financially?
For if I'm going on a trip, no.
Or any of the people that go on a trip?
No.
Okay.
The
What do they do with the money we
the
give to them
utilities make it.
on an annual basis?
Pardon?
What do they do with the money we give to them on an annual basis?
They set the activities up, and then their money is supplemented by the utilities in the state of Indiana.
Okay. I guess I got 3
The
questions.
materials are printed, the flash drives, et cetera, It's basically used for marketing, information to be given to people when you go visit.
Thank you. I guess I got 3 questions. My third one is, seeing like we're talking about Accelerate, can this particular 5% be used for anything else other than what's been brought up here today to pay for trips that Accelerate puts up?
The 5% can be used for anything you're legally authorized to spend money.
I got a question too.
It's not like the TIF money that can only be used in the TIF area.
Thank you.
Correct.
I want to say 40, but let's not. Does that sound like it's too much?
I don't know. I was just asking Jennifer, apparently, did you send that today?
No, I sent it last week when you asked.
Oh, I didn't. Well, apparently I didn't look at my email. The thing is,
And I don't know how much of that money we owe them, like how many fees he's got there going.
I can't hear what
Well,
she's
that's
asking.
that's not the same thing. His are out of the fees. This is a fee that goes on the,
That's the
on.
only fund I could find that was tied to them.
Well, the council usually appropriates some amount of money for general operation. You should have a general fund budget for the counties, but I don't know
You think it's in that?
what. No, the 5% is separately accounted for.
Of course it is.
It could be.
Talk about that 5%.
In your business and your
But what's her
job,
question? What's she asking? What's your question?
Let's clear
Jim
this
wanted to know
up.
how much money was in the fund, and I was asking Lou, I thought it was tied to his, but you say no.
It's a separate fee altogether.
That's the only one that's only fund I have money going into for fees. I can show you after the meeting.
I know it was there last year. 'Cause- well, no, the reason we know it was there last year is because Mary Jo gave us the number.
Seriously. And the next
If he ain't
item.
joking, what'd you say, Paul?
And you may have 4 questions now.
Said that person may have eliminated it.
Well, I don't know.
And did you look at something else for you? So we'll just go with that real quick.
Well, before we do any, the way this conversation's going here, it sounds like before we really act on this, because we're not gonna be able to cover the Chicago trip next week.
You don't have to.
Huh?
You don't have to anyway.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but
We won't need to,
to.
is what you're saying.
We won't need to, and we don't, we need to make sure that what in this fund and what the account number is,
After I take Jim in there tonight, I'll send you all an email tomorrow,
That's
telling you what we figured out.
Or if.
I think
Well,
it might be good, I mean, you know about these things reasonably far in advance, right?
usually a month out.
I would think that what might be good is if somebody wants to go, you pre-approve some number for hotel room, you know, up to this amount. And you establish a per diem for meals and pay, if they're driving, pay the federal mileage rate.
Can they use our tax ID number since it's through them that's reimbursing it, or no? Because like when I go stay at conferences, I take my blue tax
Oh.
certificate and I don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, they should be able to do that because they're on our nickel, it's our
But
money.
bearing in mind, you know how our claim cycle
But
goes.
this is out of state.
They covered that with us.
I know roads, we always set it up in such a way that that individual had to pay just a little bit of his own. Because if you don't, you're gonna have professional conference attenders.
Well, they have to,
Not me.
somebody has to,
I know.
There are a few of those in this group.
Go ahead, Lou.
somebody
Celebrate.
has to make a request of the board to be able to go. We can't just have people
No.
running off to conferences and sending us a bill. There's gotta be some approval by this board of them going to that conference. Now, you know, since we only meet once a month, I don't know how that's gonna work. We could authorize, you could authorize the president and vice president to approve, you know, in the interim, if somebody wants to go, if they say it's okay, fine, and then
The way that the majority of the stuff has worked with Accelerate, there's been, almost all of the trips are established at the first of the year. Haven't they been? They've almost-
Not necessarily the dates, but.
Right, but they
yeah.
say, okay, these are
Exactly.
the trips that we're gonna
Yes.
go on, who's interested. And then there's probably a good 2 months, if not more, where they get everything arranged. And they arrange where they're gonna go and then where the rooms are gonna be and that kind of thing. So there'd be more than enough time for them to be able to come in. And the other thing is too, is with this, once we define this money, the thing is that it's for all kinds of expenses that the redevelopment commission has in carrying out projects. And an example of that would be if we incur any cost in getting any numbers out here, you know, like getting the bid specs prepared or anything like that. If we have to incur any cost for that, that could be used to pay for that as well as this type of thing.
You don't want to use it to pay for that because you got TIF money to pay for that.
Well, I'm just saying if we see some big TIF number or something, or some big number that's gonna eat our TIF.
I don't want to drag this on out, but we're talking so far just about accelerating. Are we setting a precedent? Are there other things that might go on that we might want to set up per diem and a whatever rate for?
You could
I don't
set-
know, Benny, I'm just saying, are there some things out there?
You could set a per diem,
Yeah.
and then if somebody comes in, set a per diem and set some cap on rooms that, you know, requires special approval if you're gonna go above that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But my thoughts are this, we're talking this one group only now. And so my thoughts are, if it's anything up and beyond that, then it has to come here for special approval.
Well, it has to come too. I can't, yeah.
Just with the
I think you
clawback,
sidestepped my question.
with the clawback, no Michael Jordan Steakhouse.
Why not?
Too expensive.
Well, I think it's kind of, we need to think about this. Here's my thought. We need to think about what we want to do and act on this next month, find out what's available. And I agree with what you had to say, Bill. We don't want a professional person going da-da-da. That's not gonna happen. This commission won't allow that.
So you're gonna table it for this month and then look at it again next month?
Well, and the thing about the accelerate thing, Bill, the thing about the accelerate thing is like meals, that can be defined per meeting that you're going to, because a lot of times utilities cover those costs of the meals.
And this won't even be a motion, so there's no table to it.
Maybe Bill could get a hold of Rose's reimbursement policy.
Well, I've got them at home. You want them?
We could get a, you know, take a look at it.
Fred, I know you had a question.
Yeah, Fred, if you was what it was.
Paul, in your job as a county commissioner and going and looking and inspecting and driving, looking at roads in your district, do you charge off per diem on your car?
Yes.
Is that miles?
Yes,
You do?
yes.
56 cent
No,
depreciation or what?
no. The state of Indiana approves an amount to be paid by the county, which is the same amount paid by the school corporation, so on.
No.
I think the federal amount is 55 or 56 cents. The amount that's approved for us is 44 cents a month,
Let's sing the
44 cents a month. But if I go out here and look at a bridge, a road, yes, that is reimbursable mileage.
But if you went to this meeting in Chicago and we said we want you to go, would you charge that as mileage on too?
Would I charge mileage? Yes,
Would you?
yes, yes.
But it's only fair, I think.
Yeah. I get mileage when I go to conference.
Huh?
I get mileage when I go to conference.
Well, like this meeting, they're going to Chicago, they're talking about taking 2 cars. So
I do
there
too.
may not even be any mileage. I mean, they really try to cut down the cost.
Let me say something about the accelerator group. I think the monies that they have, they manage it pretty well and get a lot for the buck.
I would agree totally.
I mean,
The budget is not great.
the budget's not that big. Their budget's, you know, and I probably got that at home exactly how much. It's between 35 to 40,000 a year is
The
their
the
budget.
balance in the budget today was $37,612.
Wow, you on the edge, man.
What's that?
But they budget their money, they know what the normal income is. I say this, from when we started that group, you know, basically, there was initial, it was just the counties, but since that time it's grown and the you know, the Duke Energies, the Vectren Gas, and all them have joined some banks that donate, that really help out covering the expenses, and that keeps our expenses. So that's so much so far. So let's do this. Let's try to come up with maybe some language, and we'll coordinate everything.
You want me to get our language?
That'll be fine.
Okay.
That'll be fine.
I have a question. Approximately how much would the 5% generate?
That's what we gotta find out.
We gotta find that.
We had a number last year.
Yeah, we don't have it now. so
Well,
it's
we're
the
gonna look and see if we do, so.
I'm confused. What was the 37,000? What's that?
That's the balance in the accelerate fund.
And accelerate.
Yes. That has nothing to do with Lake County. no.
Thank you. Hey, next time, if you get root beer, then Coke is terrible.
The other thing before we get to claims is, well, there's a couple things. On the report for the expansion and retention visits that we had,
They were great. I mean, the school folks really interacted real well with the folks in the companies, and the companies really gave them some good input. They kind of just boggled their minds because, you know, probably the roughest floor we run was PDF, and even at PDF, they were amazed at the robotics and the lasers and just the overall scope of what PDF did. And then when we went to IBC, I pointed out to them that all of that ducting and everything that runs all the air around everywhere, that was all custom done by PDF. And then after we finished their PDF, they were just nuts and loving that. And we had a very good discussion with the school board president during lunch. Thank God he could talk, because I couldn't. And
you were,
yeah, I could. I mean, I literally couldn't talk. But it
which
worked
was
out.
good.
It was a good
It
thing.
should happen more often.
Oh, my. I should have gone on that one.
Tim's face is terrific.
Okay.
It is.
Anyway, you know it's going to when you say that. You're as bad as my daughter. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
I didn't feel that for you, man.
What's the next thing on?
It was great. Let's put it that way. No, we are going to though send another letter out. I'm working with Tim on that right now. That's going to ask the companies to commit one person to this career success group that the school corporation has formed. And if they carry everything out according to this state program, and it's to make kids aware of the possibilities that are out there. And unlike the majority of the counties, they're not going with a college-oriented thing only. They're going with a career success to show what careers are out there. And if you get that, then once you're designated as that, then you've got signs to put on the borders saying we are a career success community and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do next, is contact companies.
It did go well. Dr. Tim Rail, he's the assistant superintendent, along with Kathy Canoe, she's director of curriculum and grant writer for the county school corporation. There was 18 to 20 of us on the first visit, a few less than that. Fred and I was privileged to go on the first day to PDF and Grid Arrow, then Fred went out to IBC the following week. Appreciated that, but a lot of good input from everybody. Lunch was provided because we had two visits by the Farm Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce at the YMCA, and Jennifer, she even got to go with us. I was glad that she got to go. During our lunch session, because we had about an hour and a half before we went to Red Arrow, we had a good roundtable discussion, a little brainstorming, and got a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions, and so it was well worthwhile. It's something we've been trying to do for a long time, and finally done it. I know Kenny Meyer was glad.
And just so you know, right now, you've got basically 4 companies that are likely to do expansion projects within the next year. So, and not just little expansion projects, I'm talking building projects.
Okay. So you got anything on memory care, Jim?
Yeah, they should be closing or have closed on the property. And what was it, in June, they were gonna come in with the,
They're supposed to come in June for final plat approval. Once they get final plat approval of their subdivision, then we can go back and start up the TIF stuff again, because you'll remember we changed that so that we would designate only one allocation area out of the 3 lots.
Is there any kind of a projected completion date, or they even thought out that for you?
You know,
I think, having talked to Hadley, I think some of it changed when he was in the hospital. Because he was in the hospital for a bit.
If they don't hurry up, I might not have a chance.
I don't care about yours, I'm worried about mine.
That far out.
That ain't far as you think, pal.
Better check it out.
Paul may have me in the hospital by then, you don't know.
Well, the last thing on the agenda is claims. I have 2 of them. One is from Unball, from the presentation that Jason made us last month, which is a total of, well, IBC for that part was $2,150. The I-70 59 TIF area, the same amount, $2,150. North Central TIF area, that report for $2,150 for a total of $6,450. That is our first claim. The second claim is for Morse Manufacturing on their abatement, and it's the work that Lou does, his normal charge of $2,250.
Should have had 2 from Jason.
I do, but one we can't act on right now. Because that area hasn't been completed. Let's do the involvement first then, to clarify things. So unballs is a total of $6,450. If we have a motion to approve this claim.
I would so move.
I second.
Motion by Bill, second by Jen. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. The second one is for the personal property tax abatement. This goes to the city, approval, and anyway, it's the bill is for $2,250.
What's it for?
The abatement that Morse Manufacturing, remember that Cummins does. So I need a motion to pay this back claim for $2,250. 2, Hawthorne or Gamble and so.
Make a motion to pay claim $2,250.
I'll second.
Motion by Jan, second by Vicky. Any other discussion about the claim? If not, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Has anybody else got anything good for the cause?
One more thing. I need anybody except him. I have a prospect who would like to have the input of the Redevelopment Commission, preferably at least one person from the council, because they've expressed interest in the I-70 59 area, and the commissioners. And I'd like to be able to get, by, well, maybe sometime tomorrow, dates that, and people that could meet. I mean, 2 of you, yeah, I know your point, but 2 of you, and whoever from the commissioners, And then I can email Larry and let him make the decision on the council. But we need to meet next week, and I need several days and the times that people would be available, the ones that would be going. And we meet here. But they actually are doing a master plan. They've acquired the option to some property that part of it they'll be building something on. The other part they're laying out right now, and they would like to have your input on that layout because they want it to reflect what you want for the interchange.
So it's obvious that the I-70, 59 area, and properties in that area.
And they've already cut their property deals, so that won't hurt anything. Being back there, so. But if you could, sometime tomorrow, just if you could email me or however you want to do it.
This is any day next week.
Not Wednesday or Friday. It'd be Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. And he didn't have a preference, afternoon or morning, either one. Just
So you want us to
decide who you want to have there, and then I'll give Larry. He's going to talk to Brian because that's Brian's area.
Oh,
I gave him the area. Let's put it that way. The area that's involved is Brian. So, and then I'll let Larry make the decision for the council. You know who he wants there. But the reason I wanted to involve them is because they've made a commitment to support the development of that area. So, and of course, Brian Wyndham, I think he's on vacation. So. But this will be very interesting. It won't be a waste of time.
well,
And these guys have investors.
it's obvious only two on this board can be there.
Right.
Now you gotta worry about what you do. Oh, yes, you did.
I told him that you all were mentally incapacitated. No, you gotta live up to it, because I really amped you guys up. Said they had this illustrious former Rose Holman guy and
Yes.
and a big time banker from
Come on,
Clay
let's see
City.
your face, get ready.
What,
It's
I'll
happening.
forward you my available time, if you want to do the same, Brad.
He said he didn't want me.
I don't care what he said.
Okay.
Well, I did, but- yeah, what did he say? And then we'll decide who's available when. Becky, you will decide.
It's too hard for me to commit.
What?
You set a time yet?
No,
That's what I'm asking you guys to do.
he's gotta have a option. So just send him your available times, I'll send him mine, Bill, and then we'll,
Did you seriously, Lee, did
then I'll
you
make
suggest for a couple of
I'll
days,
just make
not
my
good?
decision if you're available.
Wednesday
he's not,
and Friday.
or
You hear that?
maybe- What?
He's saying Wednesday and Fridays are out.
Wednesday, Fridays are out next week, so and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Thursday.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Okay.
Okay.
We'll forward that to you.
Okay.
Lou, you got anything?
I gave
I'll
a
go.
letter to everybody there with an outline of the new, that stuff doesn't take effect until July 1. And our reporting this year is the same as it has been for the last couple of years, so we'll have to get one of those reports out here in the next month or so. I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Frank?
Jim, I would be free to attend that meeting if that would.
Nice try. Nice try.
He's not a quorum.
Open door law.
I'm not a board member, I mean, you know.
Okay, anything else? If not, got a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll take a second.